William Cornelius Van Horne was born on February 3, 1843, in Chelsea, Illinois, into a modest family. His father, Cornelius Van Horne, struggled as a farmer and small businessman, while his mother, Mary Miniere, managed their household. From a young age, William exhibited a fierce determination and an insatiable curiosity. This drive propelled him from a humble telegraph operator to the general manager of the Canadian Pacific Railway, CPR, a position that would see him tackle the monumental task of uniting Canada with the transcontinental railway. As Van Horne took charge of the CPR in 1879, he was acutely aware of the immense pressure to deliver results. The Canadian government had invested heavily in the project, and any delay or failure could spell disaster for the nascent nation. With this burden of ambition weighing heavily on him, Van Horne adopted a no-nonsense approach, prioritizing speed and efficiency above all else. The construction of the CPR was a grueling endeavor that demanded the labor of thousands. Workers from diverse backgrounds, including Chinese immigrants, indigenous peoples, and European settlers, faced harsh conditions. They worked 12 to 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, in physically demanding and perilous environments. Van Horne's management style was relentless. He expected unwavering dedication from his workforce and had little tolerance for those who could not keep pace. The workers were paid meager wages, barely enough to survive, and were provided with inadequate housing and food. Labor camps were overcrowded and unsanitary, breeding grounds for disease and despair. Chinese laborers, in particular, faced severe discrimination and exploitation. They were assigned the most dangerous tasks, such as blasting through the treacherous Rocky Mountains with explosives. Many lost their lives in the process, their deaths often going unrecorded. Van Horne's primary concern was the timely completion of the railway, and he viewed these workers as expendable rather than as individuals deserving of dignity and respect. The impact on indigenous communities was equally devastating. The railway's route cut through vast tracts of land traditionally inhabited by indigenous peoples, leading to their displacement and disruption of their way of life. Treaties were hastily negotiated, often under duress or deceit, resulting in the loss of traditional territories and the marginalization of indigenous cultures. Van Horne, focused on his mission, showed little regard for these communities. The railway was hailed as a symbol of progress, but for indigenous peoples, it represented profound loss. Their lands were appropriated, their hunting grounds destroyed, and their communities fractured. The government's promises of compensation and support were rarely fulfilled, leaving many indigenous peoples in poverty and dislocation. The cultural impact was equally damaging, with the influx of settlers and industries further encroaching on indigenous territories and eroding traditional practices. The environmental consequences of the CPR's construction were also significant. The railway cut through pristine wilderness, altering landscapes and ecosystems. Forests were clear-cut, rivers dammed, and wildlife habitats destroyed to make way for the tracks. Van Horne, in his pursuit of progress, showed little regard for the natural world. His focus was on the immediate benefits of the railway, facilitating trade, boosting the economy, and connecting the country. The long-term environmental costs were an afterthought, if considered at all. Despite his remarkable achievements, Van Horne's legacy is marred by the ethical compromises and injustices that accompanied his success. His story raises important questions about the nature of progress and the price we are willing to pay for it. Can the ends ever justify the means? Is it acceptable to sacrifice the well-being of individuals and communities in the name of national development? Van Horne's life illustrates the complex interplay between ambition and morality. His vision and leadership were crucial in shaping Canada, but they also left a trail of human suffering and environmental destruction. The exploitation of laborers, the displacement of indigenous peoples, and the environmental devastation are all part of the untold story of the CPR's construction. The voices of those who suffered in the shadows of Van Horne's success have often been forgotten or marginalized. The Chinese laborers who risked and lost their lives, the indigenous communities whose lands and cultures were disrupted, and the environment that was ravaged by industrial progress all deserve recognition and acknowledgement. Efforts to address these historical injustices have been slow and insufficient. While there have been some attempts to recognize and compensate the descendants of the Chinese workers and address indigenous land claims, much work remains. The environmental damage continues to impact ecosystems and communities, reminding us of the lasting consequences of Van Horne's actions. As we reflect on the legacy of Sir William Cornelius Van Horne, it is essential to recognize the dual nature of progress. His achievements in building the CPR and shaping modern Canada are undeniable, but they came at a significant human and environmental cost. The story of Van Horne is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of considering the broader impact of our actions. In today's world, where we continue to grapple with issues of economic inequality, environmental sustainability, and social justice, Van Horne's story offers valuable lessons. It reminds us that true progress requires a balance between ambition and empathy, between development and preservation, and between the pursuit of success and the protection of human dignity. In the end, Van Horne's life serves as a powerful reminder that the path to greatness is often fraught with moral dilemmas and ethical challenges. It is up to us to learn from the past, recognize the mistakes and injustices made, and work towards a future where progress is achieved not at the expense of the vulnerable, but in harmony with the principles of fairness, compassion, and respect for all.